everyone. Grandpa Ron here again. We're going to continue today with our very basic Bible study. I hope you're all well and happy, and we'll enjoy focusing on chapter 32 of Genesis. So let's get started. Remember in the last chapter, Jacob had separated from Laban. He had tried to sneak out, but of course, foolishly. But of course, Laban caught up with him, but God told Laban, pretty much hands off, And so they came up with a peace pact, and Laban returned home, and now Jacob is continuing on to the promised land. But he's got some concerns and worries because when he left 20 years ago, it wasn't under the best of circumstances. He had deceived his brother and his father, and neither one of them very happy with him. So let's see what happens in chapter 32, verse 1. Now as Jacob went on his way, the angels of God met him, and Jacob said when he saw them, "This is God's camp." So he named that place Mahanaim. So Jacob is afraid, he's worried, he's kind of an on-again, off-again faith relationship with God. But God is going to try to calm him down and show his protection to him. And we'll see if that works or not. Verse 3. Then Jacob sent messengers before him to his brother Esau in the land of Seir, in the country of Edom. He also commanded them, saying, "Thus you shall say to my lord Esau, Thus says your servant Jacob, I have sojourned with Laban and stayed until now, and I have oxen and donkeys and flocks and male and female servants, and I have sent to tell my lord that I may find favor in your sight." So he's going to try to smooth things over with Esau, acting subservient to him, showing that he has a lot of stuff now that he wants to patch things up, so to speak. Verse 6. And the messengers returned to Jacob, saying, "We came to your brother Esau, and furthermore he is coming to meet you, and 400 men with him." Then Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed, and he divided the people who were with him, and the flocks and the herds and the camels into 2 companies. For he said, "If Esau comes to the one company and attacks it, then the company which is left will escape." Well, his actions aren't really showing a great deal of faith in the Lord. The Lord has made promises to Abraham and Isaac and Jacob that they're going to be the progenitors of multitudes of people, and that the whole world is going to be blessed by them, and so on. But he's afraid that Esau is going to kill him, and that God is somehow not going to protect him. So he's taking measures himself. He's dividing his people, and he's just like his usual nature, trying to plan and plot and scheme and figure out how to take care of this himself, rather than trusting on God to do it. Verse 9. And Jacob said, "O God of my father Abraham, and God of my father Isaac, O Lord, who didst say to me, Return to your country and to your relatives, and I will prosper you. I am unworthy of all the loving kindness and of all the faithfulness which thou hast shown to thy servant. For with my staff only I crossed this Jordan, and now I have become 2 companies. Deliver me, I pray, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, lest he come and attack me, the mothers with children." For the first time, he's being honest with God. He said, I'm afraid. He's saying, God, I need your help. And as we're going to see even further in the chapter, sometimes God has to bring us to a point of hopelessness where we just can't see how we're going to manage things ourselves. And it forces us to turn to God, to trust Him, to put our hands in His guidance and protection and loving care. And so we actually see Jacob starting to trust God, and say not trust, but he's in pleading with God, please help me, please help me. Verse 12, for thou didst say, I will surely prosper you and make your descendants as the sand of the sea, which cannot be numbered for multitude. He's reminding God, you made these promises, so now you have to protect me if these promises are going to come true. Verse 13, so he spent the night there, then he selected from what he had with him a present for his brother Esau, 200 female goats and 20 male goats, 200 ewes and 20 rams and 30 milking camels and their colts, 40 cows and 10 bulls and 20 female donkeys and 10 male donkeys. And he delivered them into the hands of his servants, every drove by itself, and said to his servants, pass on before me and put a space between droves. We're going to see as we read that he's going to try to appease his brother by giving him all kinds of stuff. And he's going to spread all this stuff out. So it's going to arrive at his brother's location. You know, his brother's headed toward him, and this stuff's going to be headed toward his brother. And he's going to encounter flock after herd, after drove, and going to try to kind of wear him down in a sense, cool him off if he's mad, as Jacob suspects. Verse 17, and he commanded the one in front, saying, when my brother Esau meets you and asks you, saying, to whom do you belong, and where are you going, and to whom do these animals in front of you belong? Then you shall say, these belong to your servant Jacob. It is a present sent to my lord Esau, and behold, he is also behind us. In other words, he's coming, but this is a gift to you. So Esau is going to get gift after gift after gift, and Jacob is hoping that this will appease him. Verse 19, then he commanded also the second and the third and all those who followed the drove, saying, after this manner you shall speak to Esau when you find him, and you shall say, behold, your servant Jacob also is behind us. For he said, I will appease him with the present that goes before me. Then afterward I will see his face, perhaps he will accept me. So again, he's asked for God's protection, for his help, but he's trying to work this out on his own. Sounds like what we do. You know, we try to plan and prepare and oh yes, God, you take care of us. You protect us. And it's good to plan, it's good to prepare, but you can't put your faith and trust in the preparations and in the stuff you have. You have to put your faith and trust in the Lord. And he's kind of got it backwards here to a point. So let's see what happens. 21. So the present passed on before him, while he himself spent that night in the camp. His present is already on its way, but he hasn't started yet. Now he arose that same night and took his 2 wives and his 2 maids and his 11 children and crossed the ford of the Jabbok. And he took them and sent them across the stream, and he sent across whatever he had. Then Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until daybreak. Wow. God has him right where he wants him, by himself, where he can deal with Jacob one-on-one. And we're going to see as we read further, and there's reference to this in the New Testament, that this man is none other than the pre-incarnate Christ. This is Christ before he came to earth as a man. And let's see what happens. And when he saw that he had not prevailed against him, he touched the socket of his thigh. So the socket of Jacob's thigh was dislocated while he wrestled with him. Just like a parent wrestling with a child. I know this is a bad analogy. All human analogies tend to break down, but wrestling with a child, kind of in a training sense, in a loving sense, condescending to the point where might even give the child advantage for a while, pretend like the child is winning, whatever. But the stronger is never in doubt. Who's going to win is never in doubt. But here they're wrestling. Jacob might have thought, hey, this is an assassin, from my brother Esau to kill me or whatever. He soon realizes that's not the case. But God wanted to bring Jacob to a point, like I mentioned before, of hopelessness, of helplessness. And so he touched his thigh, and his hip was dislocated while he wrestled with him. Then he said, "Let me go, for the dawn is breaking." But he said, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." So Jacob, at a point of helplessness, is just clinging on to the Lord here. And he says, "I'm not going to let you go unless you bless me." So he said to him, "What is your name?" And he said, "Jacob." Back then, a name meant more than just a title. Somebody says, "What's your name?" "Oh, I'm Ron." That really doesn't mean anything. But back then, it meant something. It was a description of your character, of who you were. And Jacob is being forced to say, "I'm Jacob. I'm the deceiver. I'm the conniver. I'm the one that tricks people and manipulates people." He's having to say, "This is who I really am." Verse 28, "And he said, your name shall no longer be Jacob, but Israel, for you have striven with God and with men and have prevailed." I never fully understood this because Jacob doesn't win. So in what sense has he prevailed? One scholar, Dr. John Wickham, explained it this way, if I can try to sum up his lengthy explanation of this. Jacob is brought to a point of helplessness and hopelessness, and he's forced to rely on God. And so he tells God, he clings to the Lord and says, "I'm not going to let you go unless you bless me." He basically has surrendered. He's given up. He surrendered himself to the Lord and said, "Now bless me." And God does that. He brings Jacob to a point where he realizes who he really is himself. He realizes what he is inside. And by surrendering to God, he has prevailed because he has won the good favor of God. He has received God's blessing. So to me, that's the best explanation that I've heard of this in a way that I can understand, and I hope it makes sense to you. That's what God wants of us. He wants us to surrender ourselves, recognize that our only hope is in God, in the Lord Jesus Christ, surrender to Him, and then God will favor us. Okay. Verse 28. "And he said, your name shall no longer be Jacob, but Israel, for you have striven with God and with men and have prevailed." So he's actually changing his name. He's saying, you shall now be called Israel. But we're going to see through subsequent verses, and even into the New Testament, that Jacob never fully lives up to that name consistently. There's times, but most of the time he remains Jacob. And that's one of the things that you and I should strive not to happen. We want to become more and more Christ-like and grow in our relationship to God. Jacob, his relationship was more up, down, up, down, up, down. And we fall into that pattern sometimes as well. But our goal should be not to be that. Verse 29, then Jacob asked him and said, please tell me your name. But he said, why is it that you ask my name? And he blessed him there. My footnote says that question had already been answered because only God could change his name to Israel. So he should have known who this was. Verse 30, so Jacob named the place Peniel, for he said, I have seen God face to face, yet my life has been preserved. So he realizes this is God himself that I've been wrestling with. Verse 31, now the sun rose upon him just as he crossed over Penuel, and he was limping on his thigh. Therefore to this day the sons of Israel do not eat the sinew of the hip which is on the socket of the thigh, because he touched the socket of Jacob's thigh in the sinew of the hip. So this is a tradition that's gone on even to this day. So we still haven't reached Esau yet, but we can see Jacob's preparation. We can see that through his fear and apprehension that God brought him to a point of helplessness and hopelessness. And so even though he made these preparations and sent the gifts on ahead to try to appease his brother, he has at this moment in time apparently turned his trust to God and recognizes that he needs God's help. So I hope this has been interesting and helpful. And next time we'll see what happens when he actually meets his brother. Until then, God bless, and we'll see you later.